Good. What's the weather like in Vermont?
It's pretty sunny out. Yeah, surprisingly warm for it being uh November.
Nice. Changing colors, of course. You're into November on the
No more
trees.
colors. All
Uh,
the leaves are off the trees.
so welcome everyone. As you're getting on, you know, if you like, jump on video just so we can say hello, and then after that we can you can go back. Hi, hi Theodore, Bob here. Where are you joining us from? Where are you?
Hello, Bob. Hello, Katie. I'm joining from Romania.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm happy to meet you virtually. I
Yeah.
never had this opportunity before. I
I-
registered.
How did you find out about, are you a DVA member?
Um, I'm not quite sure because I registered, but I guess I registered before, and but I'm not sure if is it any fee to be a member?
I don't, but you can if you want, we can send you our newsletter. And actually, we have one coming out. Katie's responsible for it, coming out at the beginning of the week. Just updates on what we're doing, and then you get all of our events and stuff. You can join whatever you want, if that sounds.
I have registered for several Sunday Sangha meetings, but have never
Ah,
actually had the occasion to participate
nice.
because other things happened. But now I'm happy to meet you.
I think you're our first person to join from Romania. I'm not sure. We don't get a lot of people, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, not so many, but it's great. So welcome. I hope
Thank you.
this is interesting for you. Welcome everyone. And if you like, just turn your video on just so we can say hello. I'm going to introduce Katie, and then if you need to turn it off, that's fine. So just to see, I recognize some of you I don't. Lisa. Anyways, Eric, hey, Terry. Hi. Hi, Benson. How you doing? So where are you all from?
Hi,
Just
I'm
a quick check-in. I'm here in San Diego, actually North County, San Diego, a place called Solana Beach. And I started DVA with three friends back in 2011. And we're the only international Buddhist animal rights, animal advocacy organization in the world. And it's after 13 years, I thought maybe there'd be some other one out there. So yeah, that's who I am. And Katie's been working with us since the summer, I guess since June, I think, huh, Katie? Yeah,
Yeah,
our
middle of June.
communications, our communications director. And I'm gonna introduce Katie now, and then we're gonna then she's going to talk and about what I hope you'll find interesting. A lot of topics, a lot of stuff is going on. So DVA is really active. We're active in the United States. And the United States is not such a big Buddhist country, right? It's like there's maybe 5 or 6 million estimated out of 350 million people, but there's a lot of centers. There's, of course, Asian Americans, there's Chinese, Japanese, Thai, Tibetan centers all over. And we have big projects in Sri Lanka and in Thailand and in Vietnam. So Katie's our communications director. She'll be telling you, I think, some of the things that she's been doing, some of her ideas to expand the reach of DVA around the world. And Katie has a master's degree in
Environmental law and policy.
environmental law and policy from the Vermont Law School up there in the New England, the northeastern part of the United States. Katie also works. So works part-time with us, and she also works with a pretty well-known organization in defense of animals, IDA, and they do a lot of work not only in the United States but around the world. So what we do at DVA, we just really concentrate on Buddhist communities because no one else is doing that. And it's estimated about 1 billion Buddhists in the world. Most of them live in Asia. So myself, so I'm Buddhist. I've been practicing for 30 years. I actually teach also. And Katie also spent time in Bhutan, the Buddhist country, doing a project. There's undergrad, right, when you're in college. So,
Yeah, it was study
yeah.
abroad.
So I'm going to, Katie, I'm going to turn over to you, and then I'm going to ask you, I just want you to just start telling us about yourself, about your role in DVA, maybe what your vision is, what you're seeing, what you think the possibilities are, anything you'd like to share with us, and then I'll ask some follow-up questions. And what I think we decided, it's okay if people want to ask questions during, or do you want to just take a pause in the middle? What's
Yeah,
good
that's
for you?
okay. That's
Okay,
totally
good. Yeah, hi. Hey, Emily's waving. Hi, Emily. Do you know Katie? I think you do.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So good. So if you want, anytime Katie wants to welcome questions that you have. So just raise your Zoom hand or raise your actual hand if you want to be on video. So welcome, Katie Nolan. We're so happy to have you here. You've already done some great work for DVA. And what's been going on?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Glad to be here and having this conversation with you. I guess I'll just kind of reintroduce myself. I started working at Dharma Voices for Animals about mid-June. I'm our new communications director. So my background is in animal advocacy and also in Buddhism, specifically in educational format. I studied religious studies in undergrad. So that's kind of how I came to DVA. Now I'm sort of in charge of helping out with our newsletter. I help run our monthly meditation sanghas. Those happen the last Sunday of every month. I've been working on refining our donor engagement strategy, our social media strategy. I do some work with our graphics and post on our social medias. So yeah, very exciting work. I support our US projects team, our Vietnam team, Sri Lanka team, and Thailand team. So we have different teams throughout the globe, which is pretty exciting. Oh, Bob, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. And you had one of your many responsibilities is this e-newsletter that we send out maybe 5-6 times a year. We have one that's going to go out next week, and we're going to update you on some really exciting things that are going on. Katie, how did you? So you're vegan. How did you become vegan? And and then I got a few other questions I want to ask you too.
Yeah, definitely. So I started out by going vegetarian. I was quite little, actually, and some of my family's on the call now. My grandma loves to tell the story about how I was, I think maybe 4 or 5, and I started asking some questions about the chicken nuggets we were eating and where did these come from? And did this animal have to die? And it just started like asking questions, and my family, they were a little caught off guard by that. They kind of brushed off my questions for a while, but after they realized I was really serious about not wanting to eat meat anymore, I was very persistent. They started supporting me by cooking vegetarian, and so I went vegetarian probably when I was around 8 years old or so, and had not eaten meat until I have not eaten meat since then, but then kind of got to the pandemic and was in this quarantine pod with some close friends during law school. And one of our friends was vegan. And so we'd kind of cook meals that we could share communally amongst our little 6-person pod. And so we'd always make vegan meals so that she could also eat. And I just kind of realized through that it was so easy to cook vegan and to eat vegan, and started kind of making the connections between farmed animal exploitation and the dairy industry and the egg industry, and kind of found it super easy to transition with support of friends. So been vegan about 4 years now.
And in the United States, as I mentioned in my introduction, we have a project. Our Johnny Puig is our director. And I know you work closely with her. What can you tell us some of the things that that are being planned for action for advocacy, DVA, in the United States.
Yeah, very exciting. We have two really cool new programs launching. One is called the Compassion Leadership Cohorts. So it's sort of a program to help Buddhists or people who are involved in Buddhist sanghas or Buddhist communities in the United States, kind of provide them with the tools to work with their own sangha or their Buddhist community to help transition them to plant-based, to help support healthy climate initiatives, environmental initiatives, healthy plant-based eating. So it's going to be a 4-month program that will start at the end of January. It'll be on Wednesday evenings. And we'll have like different class sessions. We'll talk about Buddhism and the connection between compassion and plant-based eating. We're going to talk about environmentalism and how going vegan supports a healthy environment. We're going to talk about the animals, of course, and then people in the program will sort of pick their own projects to work on, and there'll be check-in meetings to see how those are going. So really cool. If you're interested, I can put that link in the chat to sign up. And then in addition to that, there's a program that's not necessarily focused on individuals. So the compassion cohorts is more focused on helping individuals. And we have another one to support sanghas or larger Buddhist centers. We're going to be awarding like climate awards to centers who start serving more plant-based meals during their sanghas, their retreats. So that'll be really exciting. I'm going to start working directly with them to get more people to make the connection between Buddhism and plant-based eating.
So I want to ask you more about the cohort group. Of course, this will be starting, as you said, the end of January of next year. So in our experience, as I mentioned, DVA has been an organization since 2011. And of course, we're registered as a 501c3. I think it was about a year later, maybe 2012. And it's really, in our experience, it's really hard to get a center to switch its the diet of the food it's offering. So a lot of centers in the United States serve everything. I say chicken and hamburgers. I mean, animal flesh and animal products. And then there's a lot of centers that are vegetarian. So I was once vegetarian before I became vegan 20 years ago. You talked about how you were, but it's really hard to get them to move forward. And there's all kinds of reasons they'll say. They'll say, well, it won't be accepted by our sangha, by our community, or we shouldn't be telling people what to eat, and all these different reasons. But what really helps is to find people actually in that work, that go to that center, that are in that sangha, that are aligned with us, that are plant-based or on transitioning to plant-based. And then they can talk face-to-face, one-on-one with the leaders of the sangha. So this is, of course, one of the things we're trying to accomplish with our cohort group. Can you say a little bit more, perhaps, if you'd like to, about how we might accomplish that, or what your vision is for what this would look like as we have our cohorts that are helping us, being activists in their own centers?
Yeah, I guess so. And Arjani, who was also hired around the same time I was in June, she's our US Project Center director. And so she's kind of developed this cohort program. And I think the idea is to empower individuals with information about how being plant-based can not only help them be healthier, help the environment, but help them be better Buddhists. So I think the idea is we kind of arm them with all of this information, and they can then go take that to their sanghas and develop programs like teaching cooking classes or offering plant-based meals once a week or twice a week. And then on the flip side, when we work directly with the centers, we are hoping that they'll offer 1 or 2 plant-based meals a week, and then they'll slowly start expanding that when they see how easy it is. And we have awards that we will give them along the way, kind of thing. They'll get the the bronze award or the silver award or the gold award once they begin offering a certain amount of plant-based meals. So that's kind of the goal.
So it's exciting to me because it's been, in my experience, as I said, I've been running DVA since 2011. It's much easier in Asian Buddhist countries to to transition either centers and or individuals towards vegetarian as a first step, and ultimately towards plant-based or vegan as the as the final step. It just seems like people in the US have, let's say, are more opinionated about what about what to eat, and the role of the centers, and all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, and it just for some, I know there are some people on here who aren't as familiar with our other programs, but so we have very specific, I guess, tactics, if you will, for our different programs in other countries. So, for example, um, in Thailand, we teach people about the nutritional benefits of eating a plant-based diet. We do nutritional programs, support in Buddhist wats, which are like kind of like temples in Thailand. In Vietnam, we teach like cooking classes. And in Sri Lanka, we kind of talk about like combining healthy eating and compassionate living. So like, we have different specific strategies in each country. And in the United States, it's been difficult to kind of pinpoint one thing that resonates with everyone. A lot of people aren't as connected with the compassion issue. We've had a lot of success talking specifically about health and diets in other countries because, for example, in Thailand, um, monks were very unhealthy. They were eating a lot of junk food. They kind of, how it works is monks are usually they eat what they're given. And so we do education to say, like, provide the monks with better food that's healthier for them, and that's plant-based food. But that doesn't necessarily work the same way in the United States. We have different, a lot of different Buddhist communities in the United States. So our strategies, we've kind of had to tailor them and kind of see what works and what doesn't. So we're trying this new cohort program to see how it goes. So these are brand new, launching them this coming year, and guess we'll see how impactful it is and go from there.
yeah, right. Yeah, and as you mentioned, we have different, slightly different. I mean, we're still trying to move people towards plant-based. That's the common strategy of DVA. But in each country, it's different. Different cultures, different relationships between the monastic community and the lay community. I mean, for example, as you know, in Vietnam, there are approximately 50,000 monastics that are part of the larger umbrella Buddhist organization, the Vietnamese Buddhist Sangha, and all 50,000, approximately 50,000, are vegan. Because in the Vietnamese culture, the word for vegetarian means pure vegetarian or no animal products at all. So we have like a volunteer army of 50,000. So we're trying to use to mobilize that. They're all talking to their Sangha, but the people are still eating animals and animal products. So we're teaching them how to cook. So yeah, so it's this is what we're doing. You know, we're not, and also you mentioned, I'm really interested in this incremental, how we're trying to move in the US center to offering maybe one vegan meal a week, then maybe one a day, and then we're giving these awards out. So yeah, we're starting to see some change in US. We're seeing big change in Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. But you know,
Yeah.
when we first go, yeah, please no, please go
Oh, no,
ahead.
no, no. I was agree. Again, I agree that I think in some cases incremental change is impactful. And I know hearing other people's stories about how they personally went vegan, sometimes it's happened overnight kind of thing. And for myself, it took a while, and it took a lot of like cooking a meal here or there for me to build to the point where I was fully vegan. And I kind of see that like translated on a bigger scale, where that's sort of how our strategy is working in the United States, for just kind of try to show these sanghas and these centers that just one meal is doable, 2 meals is doable, and build from there.
Yeah, incremental, we can call it incremental change. And it's, some people are on the outside looking in thinking, no, you shouldn't do that. You should say vegan or nothing. But people don't respond to that. So we're just trying to save as many animals as possible. And you've really outlined our strategy very well. I also wanted to mention, I don't think I did at the beginning when I was introducing Katie. Go ahead and if you have a question, either raise your actual hand if I can see you, raise your Zoom hand if we can't, and we'll call on you. So we really want to encourage questions and answers and kind of interactive time. I think everyone learns more when we do this. And I say everyone because I learn every time we do one of these speaker series. I learn something, and sometimes I learn a lot. And so we really want to encourage you to ask questions. So you can put them in the chat if you like. And I'll try to keep my eye on that, and then I can ask when we come to the end of a question and answer. I can ask Katie the question, or just raise your hand, your real hand or your Zoom hand, and we'll call on you to do that. So go ahead. So let's take a 30-second pause and see if we can get some questions. Anything, whatever you're interested in, anything about DVA, about Katie, what she's told you about what her role is, or just kind of general questions about Buddhism and animals. I mean, why for me when I came to start DVA, as I mentioned, 2011 with Patty and Kim and David, 3 friends of mine. We're like, I was just kind of I was kind of in the middle of my 30 years of practicing Buddhism. But people cannot understand how Buddhists, with the really clear direction of the Buddha, could be eating animals. What did you have that reaction yourself?
Yeah, I remember my first conversation about connecting veganism, or I was vegetarian at the time, so connecting vegetarianism to Buddhism was with my very first Buddhist teacher in college. And I remember, talking to him about like how interested I was in the connection between my diet and being Buddhist. And the first thing he did was send me an article about how eating meat actually causes less harm than not eating meat, because when you eat, say, a steak from a cow, that one cow had to die, versus, if I'm eating a whole bunch of plants, then all of the insects and the mice and the birds who had to die from the tilling and the pesticides and all of that, which is ridiculous when you really think about it, because most of the grain and the soy that we grow is actually going to feed the cows and the farmed animals that we then eat. So, but just the very first response I got was this huge pushback that like, oh no, it doesn't make sense to be vegetarian. And that was really shocking to me, because to me, the connection always just seems so clear.
Yeah, we hear all kinds of excuses, and the one excuse that a lot of Western Buddhist teachers give is that it's a matter of choice. It's we've written a lot about this choice. Well, I mean anything. I mean, there's a choice of whether I kill a human being or not, but that doesn't mean that it's okay to kill a human being. So we just all this stuff, and how do we unpack this? What I'm sure you've had many conversations with friends and family and all, and I mean, what do you say? You mentioned the one about a lot of animals are dying anyways. Well, if you want, I like to say, if you want to, if you really care about plants, then eat them. Eat them directly instead of eat the animals. They're eating 10 times as many plants as you could possibly eat directly. So yeah, the
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely hard. I think when I have conversations, I really just try to stay open about it. I think everyone's in their own place on their own journey. I just kind of try to be like someone who you can have a conversation with and not feel judged, or learn something but not feel pressured. I think there's like a fine line between providing people with accurate information and kind of just like shoving information down their throats. So I think striking that balance has been important to me in my journey of having conversations about the topic.
So I mean, this is a really good point. So a lot of advocates, not only for animals, but just pretty much anything. I was human rights lawyers, defending people against the death penalty for many, many years. And if you're talking to somebody about your issue, whether it's animals' right to live or human right to live, and uh, it's you get a lot of different responses, and people don't want to be judged. And if people think you're judging them when you're having a discussion, they turn off. You're not going to help the animals by doing that. So that's something we really try to do. We call that right speech or wise speech in Buddhism, as you know. It's one of the precepts, and it is not to cause harm by speech, by action. So don't kill an animal, don't eat an animal that someone else is killing, but also wise speech, as you were saying, not to judge people, not to be harsh, because when we do that, it's easy to do that, right? Because we're like indignant and frustrated and sometimes angry, but we're not helping animals. We're closing the door, and people aren't making changes if we do that. So I'm really happy you brought that up. So what about Bhutan? So I'm looking. Let's see. And come on, let's get some questions. I want to ask you about Bhutan. Bhutan's like on the other side of the world from us. And you spent time there. It was a project when you're an undergrad, right? Can you tell us about what you're doing in Bhutan?
Yeah, and I think I told you and Andrea this story a couple days ago, actually. So, Bhutan is this tiny little country. It's sandwiched in between China and India. It's next to Nepal. It's in the Himalayas, and I think I was probably in like seventh or eighth grade, and I got one of those chain emails from the mid 2000s where they get forwarded by a bunch of people, and it was something about stray dogs in Bhutan and this like the way that the communities in Bhutan cared for these stray dog colonies and how everyone sort of stepped up to feed them and to care for them and make sure they were receiving what they needed. And I just thought this was so cool and different from the systems we have in the United States of just putting animals in shelters, putting them in kennels. And it just kind of stuck with me, and I was very interested in Bhutan. And so when I got to high school, I did a project on Bhutan, and since middle school was like, I'm gonna go here someday. I'm gonna figure out how to get here. And Bhutan's a really tough country to get to, not only travel wise, but they have a lot of restrictions on tourism and visitors, especially from the United States. I think they may have recently been lifted, but when I was traveling there, it was pretty tough to visit. So I found a study abroad program that was environmentally focused. It was called School for Field Studies, and I went for 6 weeks. It took us like over a week to get there. We flew the 18 hours to China. We missed a flight. We had to stay overnight in China. We flew to Thailand. We missed our flight to Bhutan, which only goes every week. So we spent a week in Thailand by accident. And yeah, finally made it to Bhutan, and it was quite the experience. I studied the intersection between people's religious beliefs, both Buddhism and the indigenous religion of Bhutan. And Bhutan is one of the few, or if the last Buddhist country in the world. But they did have an indigenous religion before Buddhism moved in. So we studied the intersection of people's religious beliefs with how they treated the environment. So how they kind of cared for the land around them, how they interacted with trees and plants and animals. So we got to go into people's homes and speak with them. We went to monasteries and talked with monks and interviewed people. It was really incredible. And there was a very clear connection between people's spiritual and religious beliefs and their interest in caring for the environment. So that was great.
Whatever happened to the work that you did? Was it published anywhere?
I believe it was. I'll have to look and find it. Yeah, it was. A lot
So
of people collaborated on it, but
you're doing interviews with people. Did you talk to monastics there, or just lay people, or both?
Both, the whole spectrum. We were invited into people's homes, lay people, monastics, everyone in between. We spoke with environmental scientists, all sorts of people, and kind of what drove them to either care for the environment, whether they did or not, that sort of thing.
So, hi Eddie, how you doing? I recognize you. How are you? I got a question here, which I want to read from Samuel Alvarez, saying, hello everyone. I'm wondering whether the main objections you find when doing your job come from different interpretations of Buddhist teachings, or if they're more personal, idiosyncratic to particular sanghas or individuals in charge of making these decisions. So, yeah, it's an interesting question. Um, do, do you want to take that up? Should I, or should I
Yeah,
take it? Go ahead.
I can try to start and you can
qualified.
fill in. I know Bob definitely probably knows more of the details of different Buddhist sects than I do, but I think in my experience, I found both. It's interesting to see how people interpret Buddhist texts, for example, differently and kind of use them to support their mission. And of course, we do that too. You know, we've found, you know, places in different Buddhist texts that support why Buddhists should be vegan, and people who don't believe that have done the opposite and found things in Buddhist texts. I think the biggest contentious example, it was the Buddha's last line. He said something about like, or why he died. It was because he had eaten pork. But there's another translation that is actually it's like a mistranslation that he died by eating pork. It's that he died because he was eating bad mushrooms, I believe. Is that right, Bob?
Truffles.
Yeah, truffles. And, you know, truffle pigs. Pigs are often used to find truffles in the woods. So the word is very similar. That's one big example, kind of like just in terms of interpretations of Buddhist teachings or texts. I do also think it is very culture-based. It has a lot to do with the culture that people are living in. Like you could be practicing the same type of Buddhism in the United States and not be vegan and or vegetarian, and versus like if you're practicing it in a country that more supports people being vegetarian, it's different. I think it can be very, very cultural based.
Yeah, definitely cultural based. And just a little, kind of little background, and you know this, that in Mahayana Buddhism, so Mahayana Buddhism is practiced widely in China, in Mongolia, Tibet, Vietnam, Korea, South Korea, Japan, etc. So it's like my guess, this is complete guess, is maybe 70%, maybe 80% of Buddhists in the world, and almost 99% of the people who self-identify as Buddhists live in Asia. And a large percentage of that, the additional 1.5% are Asian American communities in Western countries. So that, but I would say 70%, maybe 80% are Mahayana Buddhists. And in the Mahayana scriptures, it could not be any clearer that the Buddha was vegetarian and he expected his followers to be. Now, I actually practice in Theravadan Buddhism. So Theravadan Buddhism includes the countries which I haven't mentioned. So the main countries for Theravadan Buddhism are Thailand with 65 million Buddhists, Vietnam with about 60 million, and Sri Lanka maybe about 16 million, and then also Cambodia and Laos. Those are the main Theravadan countries. In Theravadan Buddhism, it's a little more subtle. What the Buddha expected of his followers, what the Buddha did. And so not maybe too much to go into now. But so people are in a place like Vietnam, where I mentioned the monastics, there's 50,000 in this big organization called VBS. Of these, they know that all the monks and nuns are vegan. I've been to many of the pagodas in Vietnam. Our director is one of the top 3 Buddhists in the country, the Venerable Thich Thanh Juan, and I'll be seeing him actually in December, in about 3 weeks or so. So he's in that country. People don't say, "Oh, of course I'm not. Who cares? I'm not. I eat animals. It doesn't matter." They're always a bit apologetic about why it is that they're not vegan or at least vegetarian. So what we've done in Vietnam, and you know this, is we are talking about how to cook. We give a message about nutrition, but the key is we teach people how to cook simply. Don't have to spend a lot of extra money. You can do it for the same amount that you can if you're eating animal flesh. And the advantages of that, peacefulness and not being part of the violence cycle and all. Whereas in other countries, like in Thailand, people, the monks and nuns are not vegetarian, let alone vegan. There's 300,000 of monastics in that country. People aren't so apologetic. They're getting the lead from the top Buddhists in the country, and so they're not so apologetic. So there we're trying to move the monastic community to plant-based with a nutritional approach. Our director has a PhD in public health from the top university in Thailand and all. So it's yeah, I love the question because this is really what we talk about, and you and I have had many conversations about this, Katie.
Absolutely. I know that Eddie has their hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Oh, who does? Oh, there. Hey, Eddie. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Hi, how you doing? Are you muted?
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, Eddie, it shows you're muted, but you're up in the Bay Area,
No.
right? Eddie, hi, Eddie, how you doing?
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
Good.
so I have one headphone that does have a working microphone and the other one doesn't work right now. So I forget that I have one in and the other not in. How are you, Bob?
Good, I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for sharing what you do, Katie. Very insightful, and both your discussions have been very helpful. Every single time I jump on here, I learn like a little bit about how things are done and can be done. It's very inspiring, and I want to say thank you first.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Yeah,
saying
thank you
that.
for being here.
I was wondering if it'd be possible to share an experience, and it might just take a little bit to kind of break down, but if you're open to it, I would really like to share and then get some insight on how it is.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I recently completed a 10-day service at a Cuenca center. It's in North Fork. I'm sure some of you might be aware of that center and the tradition, which is of Theravada Vipassana-esque tradition from Burma. And then the female teacher, whose name is Venerable Yin Kit, who also goes by Sister Jessie, and I'm going to refer to her as Sister Jessie, managed to get the center to not serve onion and garlic for the duration of the service because, and I'll explain in a bit, but I was just so surprised that there could be somebody who could have that level of influence to say, okay, well, we're going to pull all the condiments, pull all the ingredients, change the entire cooking menu that they had already prepared beforehand that would include garlic and onion to accommodate for when I was lucky enough to have an interview with her because I wanted to speak to her about this, that she had this influence because she had taken the precepts, and for them to bring her in as an assistant teacher, that they would accommodate this request. So I had to sit down with this person. I was like, how does this person have so much influence on a center that I personally have gone to, and I've expressed my from the perspective, like I have my own disdain for it. Obviously, you look at my background toward the exploitation of animals, but I've always approached it from the perspective of the animals. So just being like, hey, like this is what's going on with the animals without any level of shaming. But it's always fallen on deaf ears because I've learned that these centers are run by boards and people who are possibly just one or two individuals at the top of regional, like they have regional control of how the centers are run. So Sister Jessie, she's mentioned that okay, so I went to her and I explained, hey, like there has been a violation of the 5 precepts here at the center. And she was like, what? You know, like it really got her attention. I felt like that for someone who decides to follow Sheila, which is a translation for like morality, for someone who wants to expound compassion. So she comes from both like a Theravada and Mahayana background. So she's not exclusive to just Theravada, which tends to be more focused on wisdom. It seems usually it usually trends in that direction. Whereas Mahayana trends more toward compassion for those who might not fully know like some of the differences. Not to say that it's very exclusive, but for her, she was very surprised by that, and I felt like it was a good tactic because it helped kind of bring attention to something that was very important to them. And so I broke down all the different ways that the dairy industry violates the 5 precepts, including intoxicants, which I learned a lot more about over time, like the ingredients within dairy and cheese. And she agreed that the dairy industry was terrible. So I was like, well, what about not serving dairy then? And so she's actually interested in possibly doing it at her own center. And I was like, what? You have your own center? She runs a nunnery in Vancouver. So I was just so taken back because I've been looking for a Goenka center which provides like a great technique and from a tradition that seems to work for me and some others. But it puts some people off that are from the vegan and animal rights community when they go to the center and then they like talk about may all beings be happy and peaceful and liberated, and yet like these animals are being horribly exploited. And so for her to say that, and then the next day or day 2, so all the servers are together and we have like this little like discussion about how the kitchen is going. And then some of the people had made grilled cheese on their own for the group. And so I was saying, oh, it would be nice to like, you know, have vegan grilled cheese. And then Sister Jessie was like, yeah, just let me taste it first, right? Because she likes to make food. And so and then she started talking and complimenting it. She was like, oh, how come I didn't get a grilled cheese, right? And I was like, didn't we just have a discussion about the cow industry and dairy? And you're talking about wanting to have this sandwich and like, what's going on here? Like I was just filled with rage and anger, which, you know, I've definitely been in my practice really working on recognizing and just healing myself from over anger with different aspects of my life. So not to digress, so back to the discussion I had with her is that why doesn't the Goenka centers do this? Why would they want to get rid of dairy if they are clearly there's plenty of information in our modern day and age in Western society to be able to know this information. And then what she said was that they are scared. The center is scared, as she put it, because they are run on donations. And so I said, okay, so it all comes down to money, right? And she says, yeah. And so that's just an unfortunate reality that we both agreed upon. But then I said, like, hey, look, like these dairy options could be replaced with non-dairy options. And I started off with, I would personally fund it. And then secondly, and which I don't have that much money to be able to fund all of it, but be able to find organizations that would also fund it. So I actually brought up Dharma Voices for Animals and wrote a letter to her and mentioned it. So I really hope she follows up on that, because she was talking about possibly doing some courses that would be fully vegan. She said, oh, because she's also like Chinese American and Malaysian or Chinese, so she says in Chinese food cooking there already isn't much dairy being used, so that a lot of the dairy that would be removed would just be like during the breakfast and tea times, where they would just have the almond and soy or oat milks, which they already have anyways. So it didn't seem like to her that it was that big of a jump. So I really hope she follows up on that. And that one more thing that I just wanted to add before I pause is that the onion and garlic thing, she said, and I was like, why? You know, I understood why. I know why. So it creates passion, creates unease. And then she said that she added to it, she was like, it creates unrest in the mind during meditation, which I added in my letter to her afterwards, that the oxycontin producing chemicals, or I'm sorry, I might be saying this whole thing about the but yes, there are chemicals that are within dairy that would create some form of possible form of imbalance that would affect meditation. And so she has observed that in her own sangha and courses, that the consumption of onion and garlic actually disrupts the meditative balance. So that was one of her main concerns about why she would exclude those ingredients. And so why and how she managed and why she took that precept and why she's getting the centers to do it. So then I brought up the fact that how about if you did a vegan course, that you could, it would be a case study, because have you ever observed, I asked her direct, have you ever observed a sangha or a group or a course where there were people who were completely vegan and were not consuming any animal, not just animal flesh, but dairy from any animal, like what they would, what that was like, what kind of energy.
Mhm.
And so she said, no, I actually haven't done that before. So I felt like that was kind of piqued her curiosity, so that would encourage her to possibly find out more about that, because to her, compassion, yes, like it's important to her to a level where she would still want a grilled cheese sandwich, right? But to say that it affects something that she finds very dear to her in terms of the meditative balance, like the balance of the mind, then toward and practice toward it within Buddhism, then it seemed to strike a chord. So that's kind of, you know, I'll stop here and pause. I might collect my thoughts and kind of reflect on what's going on, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, definitely a lot to unpack. And I would encourage you to reach out to Arjani Puig, who is our US Centers project director. She's has a lot more nuanced background in Buddhism. She's, you know, has a lot of direct experience working with centers and encouraging them to, you know, serve more plant-based meals. She's faced that pushback, and I think could speak to that issue a lot more precisely than I could. I will say, I think that kind of is just the struggle, is what you described as kind of hitting the nail on the head, is what we're all sort of facing, is how do we get these centers to make that shift, especially when they are fearful of doing so, when they're relying on donor funds, when they're uncertain about whether pivoting that way would offend someone. And those are all really good questions that we ourselves are asking too, as we try to work one-on-one with these centers. I would say that it sounds like there is some hope in that specific experience. It sounds somewhat positive. They're open to that transition. And as we kind of discussed earlier, incremental change is still change. It moves us towards where we want to be. And I think that if they're open to it, definitely send their information our way. We're looking to expand the centers we're working with directly and are happy to provide support and help move the needle in the direction of going plant-based. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Eddie, way to go. I mean, that was an amazing conversation. So, we should, our Johnny's email is ARD as in David, JANI, our Johnny, ARDJANI, at Dharma Voices for FOR, animals, plural, .org. It's her email address.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. But you're in the Bay Area? Am I right, San Francisco Bay Area? Or no?
Yeah, I am. And like I also mentioned that if there was a vegan course, I would promote it, and I would hope other people would just promote it, and like
Yeah,
there would get donations that way, right? I would say
yeah.
like, what if you got a lot of money from this?
If you're interested, Katie was talking about one of our projects. It's a cohort project. It's going to start. We're going to have an announcement late January. We're really doing this. We're going to have really good speakers. We're going to have a lot of interaction. We're going to talk about advocacy, which is what you've been talking about. There's some skill there, really. I just want to compliment you on what you did. I mean, we don't have all the details and anger and all that and frustration and fear. All that stuff comes up. So maybe you've been on our Sunday, last Sunday of each month, our Sangha at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and so we try to practice with that. There's a lot of really important things there. She was open to your message. And I'm sure part of it was your delivery. It didn't sound judgmental to her. But what you did is exactly what we like our advocates to do, is to engage people. And you brought up some great points. I mean, it's really important to people, especially in some Asian cultures like Chinese, for example. We worked a lot with Master Haitao from Taiwan, and he will not eat. He's a very strict vegan, but he won't eat either garlic or onions. And it's for that reason. And as you pointed out, I mean, if you're eating the body of a dead animal with all the violence that is that it's resting in that body, the horrific life and death, you'd think that would get in the way of meditation experience as well. But this is a great place to engage people. So yeah, wonderful. I just way to go. I mean, this is great. And if you could you send email so you can send email to our entire staff, Eddie at friends@dharmavoicesforanimals.org. It's also on our website. We have a new website in January. We're revamping. So great. So this is a great lesson. I took a lot out of what you said. I got a lot out of it. I learned about how to engage people, and it's really wonderful job. You may not have been thinking about it. Thanks for mentioning DVA, but you were being a voice for animals in the sense that we're trying to be a voice for animals. So thanks a lot for doing that. We'll follow up with you if you would, just send an email to me, to Katie, to our Johnny, and then we can get back to you, because I want to follow up with that none if you think we could help you in any way in that conversation. So anyways, thanks a lot for that. So welcome some of our new people. There's also in the chat, Katie, we have another question. It's about bed bugs. I know you have an interest in insects. So
Yeah.
Can you read it right there, right, Tedder?
Yeah, basically, Taylor is asking, how can one get rid of bed bugs? I can't make peace with the idea that I'll contribute to killing them if I call pest control. I love this question. So outside of my work at Dharma Voices for Animals, I work for In Defense of Animals, and one of my specialty campaign areas is working with insects, and trying to extend compassion to insects and get people to advocate for them as well. That's a really tough question, because what do you do when kind of the line is blurred between your own comfort and safety and another being's life? I think practically what I would do if you didn't want to kill the bed bugs is you can move things that might be infested outside or put them in bags, kind of thing, and move them out of your house. I don't know how extensive your infestation is, but this is a very specific issue that I struggle with every day, not necessarily bed bugs specifically, but just in terms of how do you navigate the fact that our existence is inherently at odds with so many other beings, specifically insects. I mean, you think you drive your car to the grocery store and you're hitting moths and flies, and you're constantly weighing like your actions and whether they're worth taking the lives of others. And um, how can we navigate in this world where we're trying to be considerate of all beings, even the smallest ones? It's a really tough question. And I am so happy to hear that you're taking their interest in consideration. It's a tough thing to do, not something that everyone does. I think most people don't think twice about bed bugs. But I guess practically, I'd say moving things outside or putting them in bags. I know, I've heard putting them in the freezer, but I think that kills the bed bugs. Those would be my practical solutions. But it brings up another point of in order to be able to coexist better with tiny beings like insects, we need to come up with better strategies so that we can continue to practically live our lives and not have bed bugs. But also, take their interest in consideration. So thank you for that question.
Yeah. And Katie, I would like to add something to that, just kind of the other side of the question, which is in Theravada Buddhism. So as I mentioned a little while ago, and so Eddie, the Goenka retreats, of course, are Theravada Buddhism. You've already said that. And it's also sometimes referred to as Vipassana, Theravada, Vipassana practice, clear seeing, insight meditation. And so there's not a lot of clear messaging in some of the Theravada centers. The Goenka Center is vegetarian, but as you know, not vegan. A couple centers actually are. It all depends on the cook. If you get a cook who's vegan, they could prepare the stuff, and then a few people will complain, but basically get vegan food that way. But so Theravadins are sometimes are often very meticulous in not harming bugs like mosquitoes. And they'll talk about, sometimes in Dharma talks, monastics and lay people. They go on a retreat in Myanmar or in Thailand, and so mosquitoes attack. And so they're careful not to do this, but instead to do this, to flick it off. But yet, when it comes to eating hamburgers and chicken and aquatic animals, they say, "Oh, I didn't kill the animal." So it's our job at DVA to show them that if they're part of the process, they're responsible as just as if they'd killed the animal. And so for those of you interested in Buddhism, a really good support for this is the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, and specifically wise livelihood. In wise livelihood, the Buddha talked about 4 occupations. Remember, this is 2,600 years ago, which people should avoid because it causes harm and supports harm. So don't execute people, don't slaughter animals, don't engage in human trafficking. And then he said, don't raise animals for slaughter. He didn't draw the line at killing the animal. He said, don't raise them for slaughter. Well, if raising animals for slaughter violates Buddhist principles, but in the words of the Buddha, then certainly eating animals that are killed not for any other reason, but so that you can eat them, must also violate the Buddhist principles and the ethical or sila foundation of Buddhism. So there's so much out there, so yeah, I appreciate that. I know, Katie, you're very involved in insects, and they, we don't treat insects very well. I'm looking for other questions. Anyone
Definitely.
else?
And
Yeah, Eddie.
I know
we
we only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
But I did find there's a question from Samuel. What is the most rewarding and the most difficult part of your job? Which is a good question, I think. And what kind of advice would you give to advocates who would like to follow the professional path? So I guess I think the most difficult part is definitely seeing the animal suffering every day. It's really tough to feel motivated sometimes when the progress is so slow and you're surrounded by so much suffering. There's no way one person can handle it all. But I think the most rewarding part is just getting to work with so many other like-minded people who are also working hard to change the world and to make it a better place. That gives me hope every day and, gets me through doing this work. So I guess advice I would give to advocates who want to follow this path, who want to do this kind of work professionally, just get started anywhere. That's really it. I think I delayed doing this work because I didn't have sort of like a professional platform, but you can do this work in your everyday life. Get involved, volunteer, and those kind of things will lead towards professional opportunities if you stay engaged. So, yeah.
So how about just any quick question before we leave? Either put in the chat or raise your hand or jump on and raise your real hand if you'd like. Just have about a minute left. And this is really, Katie, this was really, really good. I really enjoyed talking to you. We've talked many times, but not for an hour unbroken about this. And this is the core of what we're doing. So deeply
Yeah.
appreciate that. We got something else.
So I just put in the chat,
Sure.
thank you, Bob, for hosting this and for having me on our speaker series. I just put my email in the chat. If you have any other questions, you want to talk about Buddhism, veganism, any of it, shoot me an email. I'm always available. I would love to chat more. So thank you all for being here and for coming to hear our little speaker series. And we have more to come. So stay tuned with what DVA is up to.
Yeah, thank everyone for supporting us, for coming on, listening to Katie, getting to meet Katie, and hearing about our work. If you want to, we don't sell services and we don't sell products. All of our work around the world, and we're doing lots of stuff, is by your generosity and donations. You go to our website and donate, and everything that you give us, every dollar that you give us, we match dollar for dollar by one of our longtime and very well-to-do donor who's just wants more money that he can match. So whatever you could possibly do to help us, we'd appreciate it. And please stay tuned on our speaker series. We'll be doing a bunch of these. And the last Sunday in every month, either myself or Bhante Sati, who's a Sri Lankan American monk, been on our board of directors 9 years now. We'll be teaching and answering your questions and having kind of a chat about the challenges as animal advocates that we face. So if you're an animal advocate, please join us. If you're not, you're just thinking about it, or you have some interest, come and join us. The next one will be, Katie, on the
Yeah, it's next Sunday, 9
next
a.m.
Sunday.
Pacific time, noon Eastern time. So the 24th.
24th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thanks, Samuel, Emily, Eddie, everyone else. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a
everybody.
good rest of your day.
Take care.